better. I reckon this foot's carried you around for quite some time. I'd be grateful for it, wouldn't you? It looks a lot better than some I've seen crippled with arthritis.
Yes, I suppose you're right, Mrs.
There. You can put your slipper back on.
Thank you. You have rubbed all the tiredness out of my system.
Isn't it shameful how some people go on when they don't know what they're talking about?
I may walk with difficulty and to the disdain of some of my fellow humans, but that doesn't mean that just matters to nothing.
Certainly not.
Now I think about I am worried about William Parker's laws being what they are.
That man's been darting through life like a lucky wildcat. Lord help him, I hope he escapes.
And I'm worried that Pastor Handley will be found guilty of treason.
Of course. You're the one who's going to have to decide, but I think it's a very good idea to defend Mr. Hanley. Now, go in the dining room and have something to eat. Lord Almighty, you are going to starve the way you forget to feed yourself.
Very well. I am tired. In your hands. As usual.
Kindly, sir.
You have nothing.
Do you know how sweet everything smells when you're leaving a place you know real good? Well, that's how it was when I come out of Mr. Stevens' house that night. Smell of the trees in the night air. Smell of the earth in the fields. Like I told Mr. Stevens, I wanted to stay there and take a stand. I wanted to hold out against every damn slave catcher in Lancaster County. You know, when I was a slave, right, they was always preaching to us about being good boys and minding our manners and doing what the boss said. But I know that being a slave was wrong from the time I was a child. And I had to run first chance I got. Had to do that to save my soul. But things are different now. This time I run to save my family. Now at first, I thought I'd go to the Susquehanna. Had a colored man by the name of Robert Loney. Now he used to roll runaways across it. Now they hide out on the other side at William Whipple's place till the coast was clear. That's right. We colored folks had a whole line of Negroes helping runaways all the way up to Canada. And get this, sometimes colored folks pitched in too. Oh yeah, they did. Now at first I thought I'd go that route. But then I learned that route was being watched real close. So I stayed over in Lordstown, hopped the train up to Rochester. I had a scare along the way at the station. There's a whole lot of police looking folks over. White man reading the paper. He come up too. No, sir.
You know what's going on?
No, sir.
You should know about it.
Yes, sir.
There's a reward for the capture of William Parker. You know who he is?
No, sir, not exactly.
He's the colored man. All the Negroes together over in Christian. You don't know about him?
Well, sir, I I've been kind of busy lately.
Posse. Killed a white man.
That sounds like trouble.
I tell you, the whole country's up in arms. First time colors banded together in slave catch. $1,000 reward. That's a lot of money.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure is, sir.
You ought to care about this.
Yes, sir.
Don't this make you feel something?
Well, sir, it's just a little different from my side, sir.
Well, I'm sure it is. William Parker was fighting for freedom.
Is that what he was doing?
He wanted liberty for his people.
He did.
Isn't that the same as every other man does? The colored people want to protect him.
Yes, sir. I most certainly agree. Should I chance to meet him?
I should think you would, sir.
I tell you, I heaved a huge sigh of relief when I hopped back on that train. Now look, at Rochester, I met up with Frederick Douglass. That's right, Frederick Douglass. Now, I head out of his house till it was time to take the ferry over to Canada. Now I went down to the landing after dark, and I head out in the shadows. And I waited till I heard them shout, "Last call to raise the gangway." Boom! I ran for it. Boat pulled off just as I hopped on. I turned to those men on shore and I said, "Right, Marshal Klein! Tell them William Parker's in Canada!" Woohoo! Now that was September 21st. September 21st is when I began to breathe the fresh air of freedom. Now, I settled in Buxton. They had a settlement for runaways there. And I got myself 50 acres and began my own farm. Started to read and write. And my family, they called up with me in November. Now, Mr. Stevens, he said that America's mine. But I tell you, I don't believe that. It was just a place where I was born. You know, a place where the warm earth felt good between your toes and where the air, the air smells so good. But I tell you, it wasn't a place that belonged to me. But different. But maybe it'd be different for folks to come after. Folks that take a stand.
The trial began on a rainy Monday morning in November. Now, I was there from the first day in the first row of the spectators' gallery. 5 white men and 36 Negroes were charged with treason against the United States government. The miller Costner Hanway was the first to be tried, and how it went with Hanway would determine pretty much how it would go with the others. Of course, the one the authorities wanted to capture was William Parker. And I do believe they would have given half the money in the U.S. Treasury to get a hold of that man. But since the authorities couldn't capture William Parker, they turned their wrath on Costner Hanway. Well, as far as that goes, the spectators of the trial seem angry at Hanway too. They seem to think that a man who does nothing, just sits there on a horse in the middle of a riot, that such a man is extremely dangerous. Was he guilty of treason? The answer was important, because the penalty for Costner Hanway and the others, if found guilty, was death. I can tell you how relieved I was to see Thaddeus Stevens there. He was the most inspiring member of all the defense lawyers. Marshal Klein was the chief witness. And he had sworn out affidavits against 17 Negroes, as well as Costner Hanway, for what he called aiding and abetting in the murder of Edward Gorsuch. But as I mentioned, now more than that, 36 Negroes in all had been rounded up and charged. They had been shivering in their summer clothes in a jail in Philadelphia since September. So, some of us ladies in the Female Anti-Slavery Society who took on the job of providing them with warm clothing. And that was a chance for us to make a point. When those Negroes were brought out into the docket for identification, they all wore identical outfits. Everyone had a red, white, and blue scarf around his neck. And Marshal Klein couldn't identify a single one.
So it would seem, then, Mr. Klein, that if you were asked to identify any Negroes who were present that morning, you might have difficulty in doing so.
There's a large band of blacks there, I can swear to that. As soon as we demanded that Parker turn over Mr. Gorsuch's slave, they all come running out of the woods.
And you saw them clearly?
Come chasing up the road after us.
Oh. You were already up the road.
Well, I wasn't going to stand there waiting for him to kill me.
Then I am to understand that the first shots were fired from your side.
I can't rightly say as there was lots of confusion.
Perhaps the reason you cannot rightly say is because you had already started leaving the scene.
There was lots of confusion.
You said that you attempted to deputize Casper Hanley.
I did. He said he wouldn't have nothing to do with us.
Did he tell you why?
He said he thought the blacks had a right to defend themselves.
Do you feel that he understood what was going on?
Man didn't understand nothing. Sure as hell didn't understand the black problem in this country.
I see that. Now that is interesting. Do you feel that he understood the white problem?
What white
Or that
problem?
perhaps the black problem might possibly be the result of the white problem?
I don't follow you.
No, I'm sure you don't. We'll let that go. You stated earlier that Casper Hanway had incited the blacks.
Yes, sir.
How did he do that?
He sat there on his horse to let him see he was on their side.
And you feel that this was inciting them?
Sure was. Then he leaned over and said something to him, and they let out a cheer.
What did Hanway say?
I can't rightly say as he spoke in a low voice.
Yes, perhaps the reason that you cannot say is because you were running away yourself. I don't believe you heard Casper Hanway say anything more in spite of your testimony. In fact, sir, I think that you were in such a hurry to get yourself out of danger that it's a wonder you did not end up in California. Let me tell you something, sir. Every earthly being who has an immortal soul has an equal right to justice, honesty, and fair play with every other man, and the law should secure him in these rights. Casper Hanway should be secure in these rights. And yet you come into this courtroom wielding a battle axe, nay, a war club of savage ignorance. I cannot imagine on what boiling cauldron you have been sitting to make you foam with all the fury of a wizard concocting poison. You accuse Hanway of saying things you never heard. And this is then twisted into some sort of conspiracy to resist the U.S. Constitution's fugitive slave provision. I hope that you men of the jury will have the sense to see that the testimony of this man is nothing more than a string of slanderous assertions, half-truths, and utterly unreliable falsehoods.
Thaddeus Stevens liked to twist his ends out of shape. And sometimes they deserved it. Hanway and all the blacks were acquitted. And the judge blamed the incident on abolitionists and subservients who opposed the law. He even included itinerant female agitators. And that gave me a shiver of pride, even though I don't deserve a bit of credit. Now, Thaddeus Stevens, he lost the next election and didn't get back to Congress till a few years later. And William Parker, oh, he acted with a lot of courage. If this country wants to celebrate its heroes, he certainly is one. And Hanway, oh, Hanway accomplished something that changed the world by sitting. Well, now, he did. Did he not? Did he not sit there on that horse with conviction and refuse to do something that he didn't think was right? And that led in turn to a trial that gave such a blow to the Fugitive Slave Act that it never recovered. And that's a historical fact.